As if weren't explosive enough, whispers are growing louder, and the tension behind the scenes is at an all-time high. Kurt Frost, Rasheeda's husband, is reportedly furious, and Yandy Smith is struggling to keep it together as she faces yet another scandal. A scandalous storm is brewing in the world of love and hip-hop, and it's bigger than anything we've seen before. Fans have been left gasping after shocking rumors began circulating claiming that Mendeecees has gotten Rasheeda pregnant. Yes, you guessed it, Mendeecees, the man we've watched navigate family drama with Yandy, is now allegedly involved in a secret affair with Rasheeda, and it's rumored that she's carrying his child. Betrayal from the man she loves. But what's the real story? Could Mendeecees and Rasheeda have been involved all along, concealing their twisted relationship right under our noses? Or is this just another made-up drama to shake up the love and hip-hop universe? Fans are shocked, family members are split, and emotions are running high as we delve into the scandal that could shatter everything we thought we knew about love and hip-hop. Rumors of a scandal that could rock the entire love and hip-hop universe started to circulate on social media in the form of whispers that no one could believe at first. However, it quickly became apparent that something explosive was happening. The first sign of trouble came when a series of photos appeared online showing Mendeecees and Rasheeda sitting close to each other during what appeared to be a private dinner. Their body language was undeniably intimate, and fans immediately took to social media to speculate on the nature of their relationship. Posts were flooded with questions about whether it was more than just a friendship, and if so, what that meant for Kurt and Yandy. However, the reactions to the photos weren't limited to fans. They also included Yandy Smith, Mendeecees' longtime. Her partner was caught off guard by the revelation. She had been preoccupied with the typical responsibilities of family life, love, and the hip-hop filming schedule, but nothing could have prepared her for what she was about to discover one night when she was looking through her phone after a long day. Her fingers trembled as she tried to process the images, wondering if a misunderstanding or if she needed to call Mendeecees and confront him about it. She was caught off guard by the question and attempted to brush it off, saying, "Yandy, it's not what it looks like." Her mind was racing with questions, but she had to find out the truth before the rumors got even worse. The following day, Yandy decided to confront Mendeecees directly. When she met him on set, she was unable to control her emotions. Her eyes were fixed on him, and her voice was shaking as she asked, "Mendeecees, what's going on? Why are you out there with Rasheeda like that?" Yandy wasn't convinced. She knew there was more to the story based on the way you two looked at each other in those photos. "Don't lie to me, Mendeecees. I know you better than that." She needed answers. "What do you mean it's not what it looks like? You've been spotted with her several times now. Are you telling me there's nothing going on between you two men?" She hesitated for a moment, looking away, before finally responding, "I swear it's just business." As the days passed, Yandy's suspicions grew that something was off, and she couldn't get rid of the feeling that Mendeecees was keeping something from her. Meanwhile, Kurt Frost, who had been dealing with his own relationship issues with Rasheeda, was caught off guard by the rumors as well. He had been trying to calm her down, but it was obvious that the damage had already been done. Yandy left the conversation feeling more confused than ever. Could she really trust him after everything they had been through? Salvage his marriage with Rasheeda after a turbulent few years, but this new twist was something he wasn't prepared for. "This can't be true," Kurt muttered to himself as he scrolled through his OHIS, seeing the same pictures Yandy had seen just hours earlier. The more he looked at them, the angrier he became. How could this happen? How could my wife betray me like this? Kurt's first instinct was to call Rasheeda, but he knew the conversation would be heated. "What is going on, Rasheeda?" He picked up the phone and dialed her number, his heart pounding. "We've been working together, Kirk, and I'm not doing anything behind your back," but Kirk wasn't convinced working together this way. Rasheeda's response was more measured, but he could hear the tension in her voice. "Don't give me that, Rasheeda. I see the pictures of you and Mendeecees. What the hell is going on?" he demanded. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line before she answered, and her voice sounded surprisingly calm. The conversation ended in frustration, with Kirk storming off, his mind swirling with a mix of emotions, wondering how Rasheeda could have done this to him. What about Mendeecees? Had their relationship been more than just a working one? Was this all just a misunderstanding, or was there something deeper going on? As the news of the alleged affair spread, fans were quick to react, and disloyalty and passion. But this new scandal had them divided. Some fans sided with Mendeecees, believing that he wasn't able to betray Yandy in such a public manner. And many fans expressed their shock and outrage on social media by posting comments like, "How could Rasheeda do this to Kirk Mendeecees? Rasheeda, this is crazy. And is Yandy really going to stay with Mendeecees after this?" The tension was palpable as the drama unfolded, and the question that hung over everything was whether Mendeecees was actually involved with Rasheeda, or it was just another twisted rumor meant to stir up controversy. Up trouble in the love and hip-hop world, Mendeecees, for his part, kept a low profile. The pressure was growing, but he wasn't ready to admit anything. The thought of losing his longtime partner and the mother of his children, Yandy, was too much for him to handle. But the rumors about his relationship with Rasheeda persisted no matter how many times he denied them. With no definitive answers and emotions running high, the stage was set for an explosive confrontation that would leave the future of love and hip-hop hanging in the balance. Fans eagerly awaited the next twist in this story. Continuous drama as the days passed, the media hysteria surrounding Mendeecees and Rasheeda intensified, and soon the scandal was all over. The tension between Mendeecees, Yandy, Kirk, and Rasheeda reached a boiling point, and everyone involved had something to lose. As the drama developed, it became evident that no one would escape this unscathed. Yandy, who was still dealing with the shock of the rumors, couldn't ignore the nagging feeling that something was wrong. She had always trusted Mendeecees, but as each day went by, the weight of the accusations became. She found it more difficult to handle and couldn't comprehend why the Mendeecees would do this to her. They had experienced so much together, and now this felt like the ultimate betrayal. Hip-hop cameras captured her in moments of complete anguish, tears streaming down her face as she struggled to process the situation. It was evident that she was struggling not only with the betrayal, but also with the public humiliation that accompanied it. One afternoon, while Mendeecees was away on a business trip, Yandy sat down with a close friend to discuss her feelings. "I don't know what to do anymore," she confessed, her voice shaking. "I love him, but this is too much. He always assured me that he was dedicated to us and our family, and now that he was with Rasheeda of all people," she shook her head in shock. Her friend, who had been listening carefully, put a reassuring hand on Yandy's shoulder and said, "You have to do what's best for you, Yandy. Isn't just about Mendeecees. It's about your peace of mind, your future, and what kind of example you want to set for your kids." Yandy nodded, but the decision was still too difficult to make. Every time she considered confronting Mendeecees, she was overcome with feelings of confusion, anger, and sadness. Even though Mendeecees had always been a self-assured man, he was suddenly doubting everything. He was having problems with his reputation, his relationship with Yandy, and the accusations that were getting out of control. He had to take drastic measures to keep getting worse, but despite his best efforts to deny it, the connection with Rasheeda seemed to be undeniable. They had flirted subtly at first, but as time went on, they grew closer, and it was impossible to ignore the chemistry when Mendeecees was spotted at an event with Rasheeda. More than friendly, it marked the start of the next chapter in this scandal. They were seen sharing moments, laughing, and touching in the photos, which were once again made public online and could not be written off as innocent. At this point, fans were convinced that something was going on. There was no doubting the couple's chemistry, and the more they interacted, the more rumors circulated. Men immediately called Rita to discuss the situation after learning of the new photos, and his voice was full of annoyance. Growing irate, "Why are you doing this? I'm in enough trouble with Yandy already." The other end of the line was silent for a moment. "But I won't act as though there is no relationship between us. I've been falling for you, to be honest." I never intended for it to get this far, but it has, and we must now face the repercussions. Mendeecees felt the impact of her words more strongly than he had anticipated, even though he knew the risk they were taking. Fans are going crazy, and now I have Kirk breathing down my neck. Rasheeda stopped to take a deep breath before responding. He couldn't help but be attracted to Rita. She had always captivated him, and their relationship had only grown closer over time. The stakes were high, but if someone found out, everything could be destroyed, including his career, his marriage to Kirk, and his relationship with Yandandi Rita. In the meantime, Kirk was furiously angry and couldn't bear the thought of Mendeecees. He continued, "We can't let anyone find out." The man who had been involved in his family's drama for years was apparently getting close to his wife. Kirk had always been the one to cause trouble in the worlds of hip-hop and love, but now he was the one being tormented. He wasn't sure if he should approach Rita or Mendeecees first because he wanted to take it easy and let things play out. After all, Kirk's anger quickly reached a boiling point, and he decided that he couldn't let Mendeecees get away with whatever he was doing because he could sense the tension in their home. Kirk said sharply, "We must have a conversation," when he barged into their bedroom. The whole Mendeecees situation has gotten out of hand. Rita turned to face her husband and froze, heartbroken, saying, "Kirk, it's not what you think." Kirk refused to listen, saying, "Don't give that to me, Rita. I've seen the photos, and I understand what's happening. Will you honestly tell me that there is no relationship between you two?" There was a lot of tension between them, and it was clear that this conversation was long overdue. But Kirk was unaware of the truth about Rita's relationship with Mendeecees was far more complex than he had expected, and fans were kept on the edge of their seats as the drama unfolded. Who was telling the truth? Was this just another story to stir up trouble? Or were the Mendeecees really connected to Rasheeda? And most importantly, what effect would this controversy have on everyone involved? The fallout from Kirk and Rasheeda's encounter was nothing short of catastrophic. Kirk was so incensed that he couldn't understand his wife's involvement with Mendeecees, whom he had known for years. He felt a mixture of hurt, incredulousness, and betrayal, and the tension in their home was obvious as. With a trembling voice, Rita said, "Kirk, please try to understand it isn't what you believe. This is not merely a simple thing." Kirk was not paying attention, as the pictures he had seen, the circulating stories, and the fact that his marriage was in the jeopardy consumed his thoughts. "Rasheeda, don't try to defend this, Kirk." Kirk's anger escalated Rita, but she was caught in a web she had made for herself. She couldn't deny her connection to Mendeecees, but she also realized that things were getting out of control. Paced in frustration and yelled, "You're saying that this is merely a miscommunication. How foolish do you believe me to be?" Rita's heart sank as the words hit a deep chord. She never imagined that things would get out of control like this. If the affair could be said to have started simply enough, with just two people turning to one another for support during difficult times, everything had exploded in their faces. However, Mendeecees returned from his business trip the next day to find his entire world in ruins, with the media roiled with ever-increasing. Yandandi was reportedly waiting for him to arrive, and her comments were as scathing as a dagger, revealing her anger. "So Mendeecees, this is what we're doing now?" she asked in a tone that was a mix of betrayal and disbelief. "You believe you could keep this from me, conceal it from everyone, from our relatives?" Mendeecees struggled to find the right words, not expecting it to hit him so hard, but he had been bracing for this moment and could see the hurt in her. His words got stuck in his throat as he tried to speak and explain that he knew he had made a huge mistake. "I apologize, Yandandi," he said in a raspy voice. "I never intended for this to happen. This is not how it was intended to be." He could see that her eyes were flushed with emotion. Yandi shook her head incredulously and asked, "Are you sorry? Do you even realize what you did? You have been playing around with Rasheeda of all people, and you have." Her voice trembled with passion. "Think that saying 'I'm sorry' will make things better? Mendeecees realizes that we've built a household and a life together, and you've ruined everything." He had always promised to support her and protect their family, But all of a sudden, it seemed like everything was falling apart. He had always taken great pride in being a nice man, but he now realized how far he had fallen short. But the drama didn't end there. As the story went on, the line between fact and fiction became increasingly blurred as new information surfaced every day. Soon after fans began learning more about the histories of Rasheeda and Mendeecees, there were a ton of theories, rumors, and accusations on social media. Some fans believed that Mendeecees and Rasheeda's romance had been developing for months, while others argued that it was just a PR gimmick to increase the show's viewership. However, the reality remained unclear, and the tension between Kirk and Rasheeda also reached a breaking point as Mendeecees and Yans. Kirk, still enraged, approached Rasheeda again, determined to get answers this time. He demanded to know how long has been happening in reality and what is going on between you and Mendeecees. Rita sighed as the stress of the situation increased, and she said firmly but softly, "Kirk, please just listen to me. Isn't easy for me either. I never intended for any of this to occur. I didn't anticipate it. It began as a vulnerable moment of bonding, but I can't lie to you any longer. I do feel something for him, but I feel something for him. I never meant for it to get out of control." Kirk's eyes narrowed. "You're telling me that you've been having affairs with him for a long time, Rita. How could you have done this to me after everything we've been through?" Rita said, shaking her head, "That's not the case, Kirk. We haven't crossed that boundary, but there is a connection between us that I can't deny. I didn't expect to happen, but it did." Kirk was hit hard by the realization that he was overcome with emotions and didn't know how to handle them. Satisfaction from being in charge and in a position of dominance, but all of a sudden he felt like he was losing control of everything. "This is a mess, a total mess," he said, running his hand through his hair. Even though Yandy was angry with Mendeecees, she still loved him because of the years they had spent together and the family they had built. However, would she ever be able to forgive him for his actions? Could she move past the media's constant assumptions and the growing hostility between the families? In the midst of all of this chaos, there was still one question: what would happen next? It seemed like everyone was affected by the intense emotional turmoil, family dysfunction, and media attention. Mendeecees, on the other hand, was mired in regret and guilt and didn't know where to begin, but he wanted to make things right and save his relationship with Yandy. He had erred, and it now appeared that the consequences were too severe to overlook. He saw the pain in her eyes every time he looked at Yandy, and it broke his heart. Obtain the answers he sought, but more importantly, would Yandy ever forgive Mendeecees' actions? As the story went on, it became clear that no one would be immune to the effects of this catastrophe. The family was still in shock over the awful news, and Mendeecees was in a constant state of conflict with himself. He knew what he had done and faced the truth of his mistakes every day. But even though Yandy was a strong and proud woman, this betrayal was shocking to her. Each side had their own version of events, but no one knew who was providing the whole truth, so it seemed that the situation was becoming more complicated by the minute. In an attempt to preserve what little remained of his relationship with Yandy, the men decided to confront Kirk, the person who had come to represent the dispute. They knew that the altercation was going to get out of control, so they called Kirk to meet him and said, "Kirk, we need to talk." Finding a solution, no matter how unpleasant the process was the only objective anymore. He knew this conversation was necessary, but he wasn't sure how to start it. "I must explain myself to you. I owe you one," he said in a serious tone that belied his uneasiness. Kirk was reluctant to see Mendeecees because he was still upset about the past encounters, but his curiosity and need for closure won out, and he spat out, "You've got a lot of nerve coming to me after everything," in a tone full of disdain. "All right, let's listen, and tell me why I shouldn't choke you right there," Kirk said. "Kirk, I never meant for things to spiral out of control here. I'm not the bad guy. We're both involved in this situation. I never meant to hurt you or your loved ones because of something that happened, and Kirk's sneer destroyed my family's means. Do you understand that I'm talking about my life here, and my wife, Rita, has been loyal to you, and you repay her in this way? Tension between them flared, and Mendeecees had to try to have the conversation even though he knew it wouldn't be easy to make things right. He had to do whatever it took. You have every right to be angry, and I know that you are, but none of this was his intention. I'm trying to defend myself, but I don't think it's as simple as you think. Kirk's eyes are squinted, and it looks like you've been playing games. You should start explaining why everything has been damaged by you. You can't undo the damage you've caused. Mendeecees refused to back down, even though the room was tense. I connected with Rita, and it wasn't a one-time incident or a passing fancy. We both needed support, and we found it in each other. However, it wasn't meant to go this far, Kurt, and I can assure you that I never intended for it to turn out this way. Incredulity. So you're saying that you needed some help to start this whole mess? You must be kidding me, and you think that will make everything better. That's not right, Mendeecees. As the conversation came to an end, both men left with unresolved feelings, and even though Mendeecees had expressed his feelings, Kirk's anger was too to be calmed by words alone. Mendy understood that despite the stress, this conversation had been necessary, and whether Kirk accepted his explanation or not, it was a positive step toward trying to sort out the chaos they were all involved in. It was difficult to ignore the situation, but Yan Dandy wanted to believe him and trust that he hadn't deliberately betrayed her. In the meantime, she was struggling to accept what had happened. She still had a deep and complex pain. Every time she opened her phone, a new headline about the scandal appeared, demonstrating that the accusations about his involvement with Rasheeda had taken on a life of their own. Yandindi had always been the one to keep things peaceful and orderly, but this time, it was more than just a little drama. It represented her future, her family, and her life. Would she ever be able to forgive Mendeecees for his actions, and if so, what steps can she take to rebuild the trust? One evening when he was home, she was alone with her thoughts racing through her mind. The room was quiet, and she wondered if it was time to leave or if it was worth fighting for her marriage even though they had had problems in the past. This was the first time she had ever felt completely deceived after spending years with men building a life together. It was terrifying to think about raising their children alone without him, but could she handle the lingering suspicions and doubts? She asked a close friend for advice in order to deal with her feelings. "What do you think, Pearl? Should I leave him or do I defend us?" With a trembling voice, she asked her friend, "You are the only one who can decide what is best for you, but remember that nobody should be treated in this way. It's one thing if you think you can forgive him and move on, but it's okay to let go if this is something you can't get over." After hearing her friend's words, Yan Dandy realized for the first time that she had been putting her family's needs ahead of her own, and she now had to decide whether preserving a broken relationship was more important than her happiness and peace of mind. The public was consuming the controversy as though it had taken on a life of its own, and the public's response was equally erratic. While some fans sided with Kirk, denouncing the affair and demanding that Mendeecees be held responsible, others rallied behind Mendeecees and Rasheeda, arguing that they had a right to their happiness. As the controversy peaked, the suspected affair between Mendeecees and Rasheeda was being discussed in every media outlet, and it seemed to get worse with each new development. Almost every day, new reports emerged, some claiming that Mendeecees had dated other women during this time, while others claimed that Rita was pregnant. No one seemed to be able to stop the drama from turning into a spectacle, but the reality was much more complex. As the dust settled, it became clear that Mendeecees, Rasheeda, and their families had an uncertain future. They had to deal with the consequences of their decisions and how those actions might affect their futures. As the days passed, there was no sign that the scandal involving Mendeecees, Rasheeda, and Kirk would go away. Every action they took appeared to be closely examined, and the drama had reached its peak. There was no apparent way to heal the family's division, and the emotional toll on all parties involved steadily increased as the media continued to cover the chaos, but Yandy stepped back from the spotlight because she needed time to process everything that had happened. Her once unbreakable bond with Mendeecees was now brittle, and she was starting to feel the effects of the situation. She spent many hours wondering if the love she had known in the past was enough to forgive the betrayal. But as time went on, she began to wonder if she would ever be able to trust him completely again. Mendeecees was growing increasingly irritated because it seemed like nothing he said would ever be enough. Even when he tried to explain himself to Kirk and Yandy, he had thought that he could mend Andy by facing the problem head-on. But he was a different person when he first entered this situation. He felt a deal of shame and realized how much he had taken for granted the family they had created together. His love for Yandy seemed to be evaporating, and there was nothing he could do about it. He pushed her away more and more as he struggled to save it. Every attempt to make things right seemed to worsen them. There was a noticeable tension between him and Kirk, and their relationship had gotten so bad that there was no turning back. The controversy had severely strained her relationship with Kirk, and although she tried to remain silent, the pressure to defend herself became unbearable, if only to clear her name and stop the endless rumors. Rasheeda gave her side of the story in an honest interview, explaining that it wasn't what it seemed and that it wasn't planned. She clarified that yes, we grew close as Mendeecees and I went through some personal hardships. It wasn't an affair, though I didn't actively seek it out. It happened by chance while we were both looking for something. Despite her attempts to defend her actions, the public's reaction to her comments didn't really calm the situation. Some people supported her, and others criticized her for her initial interactions with Mendeecees. But one thing was clear: harm had been done. When Kirk confronted Rasheeda again after the interview, his anger was evident in every word he said. "You've destroyed everything we've built. How could you harm me like this? I have faith in you, and I no longer know who you are." Kirk paced back and forth, shouting, "You've broken me, Rasheeda." Rasheeda, with tears in her eyes, declined to. "Back down, Kirk. I never meant to hurt you. It was a mistake, but I'm not proud of what happened, and I'm sorry. I wish I could go back and change it, but I can't." He didn't respond right away because the silence weighed heavily on the air, but when he did, there was hatred in his voice. "I apologize. You only have that. Are you aware of the damage you have caused to this family, to our union, to everything we have worked for? I'm not sure if I will ever be able to forgive you from this." Rasheeda's heart broke once based on mutual. She wasn't sure if their marriage could survive the fallout from this betrayal, even as she still loved Kirk Mendeecees. In the meantime, she found out that he was becoming more and more remorseful. He tried to focus on his children, but even that was becoming more difficult, and the consequences of his actions loomed large over him like a threatening cloud. There were rumors everywhere he went. Every social media post received critical feedback, and despite his best efforts to move on, he was experiencing negative consequences. Unable to deny the reality of what had happened, Mendeecees picked up his phone and looked through social media one evening while he was sitting alone in his room. He saw another headline about his scandal with Rasheeda, and his heart fell. The accusations were relentless, and the comments were harsh. He felt as though everyone had abandoned him. He started to question his decisions more and more as he read. Was it really worth it to lose everything he had worked so hard to achieve for the temporary comfort of a fling? A message from Yandy appeared on his screen while he was sitting there deeply focused, and even though it was brief, it made his heart race. Mendeecees immediately typed out a response with trembling fingers saying, "We need to talk." When they finally met, Yandy's eyes were filled with doubt and grief as she looked at him solemnly. "Mendeecees," she said in a quiet but firm voice, "I've been considering every possibility concerning us, and I must tell you the truth. I'm not sure if this exchange would be the last nail in their relationship's coffin or if it would make all the difference. I'm not sure if I can continue in this direction because of what you did, and I'm not sure if I can forgive you." Her remarks were like a ton of bricks to him, and he realized for the first time the consequences of his actions. In addition to being in agony, Yandy was at a crossroads, divided between her continued love for him and the suffering he had caused. He wasn't sure how much time he had left before it was too late, and the decision she had to make wasn't straightforward. As the conversation continued, however, he knew everything he needed to know from the doubt in. As the days turned into weeks, it became clear that nothing would ever be the same, so the question of whether Mendeecees and Yandy can mend their broken relationship remains. As the dust settles on this major incident, is their marriage irreparable, or can Kirk ever forgive? Yandy's eyes and their shared future were far from assured, and nobody knew if they would be able to overcome the many challenges that lay ahead. However, for the first time in a long time, Mendeecees understood that the true fight was against the harm Kirk had caused to the woman he loved rather than against him or the media. The world of hip-hop and love will never be the same as a result of the public outcry, familial betrayals, and emotional turmoil. Rita, you won't want to miss what comes next because there are surprising revelations, unexpected turns, and new controversies around every corner. Since we're just getting started, we'll be here to keep you informed of any developments so you don't miss anything we would now. The future of the family is in Gia's party, and only time will tell how things turn out. The drama between Mendeecees, Rasheeda, Kirk, and Yandy is far from over, but every action they take will be closely watched, leaving viewers to speculate about what will happen next in this crazy story. I would like to know what you think about the situation overall. Do you believe that Mendeecees and Rasheeda's connection was more than Rasheeda? Tell us what you think. Has their marriage reached a breaking point? Will Kirk ever be able to forgive Rasheeda? Please share your thoughts on what you believe will happen next in this intense hip-hop and romance scandal by leaving a comment below. Please click the like button, subscribe to the channel, and enable notifications so that you don't miss any of our delicious news. Belle, you won't want to miss this film if you enjoyed it and want to learn about the latest rumors involving celebrities. We value your time and hope to see you in the next video, which will include even more exciting news.